The blade came down in one clean arc, humming through the air like it had done this many times before. It wasn't ceremonial, just precise. Unfeeling. Rayna Voss didn't flinch. She watched the crowd instead. Watched how they leaned forward, eyes bright with a hunger that wasn't their own. Beaten down miners, scavenger children, even fellow Terrans, silent, too afraid to look away. Her right hand hit the dirt with a dull slap. Blood gushed from the stump, hissing as it touched the sun-baked stone. The restraint pole creaked behind her, but she stayed upright, breathing evenly. "Let this be your lesson," Lord Kralliksven said, his voice low and cold. His claws glinted crimson as he turned to the crowd. "Even your strongest are hollow once you open them." Rayna met his gaze. "You're mistaking silence for surrender." Krallix snarled. The back of his hand cracked across her face. "You're done speaking, Terran." The guards dragged her away before she bled out, throwing her limp body into the refuse pit behind the forge sheds. No medic. No sympathy. Just the buzzing of flies and the stink of rust and old oil. She woke up that night under a fractured sky. Zyril 9 had 2 moons, and both were watching her like silent sentinels. Her body burned. Her mind didn't. Some part of her had broken when they took her hand. Not her spirit. Something deeper. The part that believed she could keep hiding. No more. By the 3rd day, she crawled into the caverns below the mining shafts, where no guards ventured. The Cave of Machinery, they called it. A graveyard of Terran tech buried under decades of alien conquest. She found it by accident. Or maybe instinct. Half buried in slag and carbon rot lay the chassis of an old Terran war mech, Type 07A, disarmed, its plating peeled back like insect husk. But its interface module still blinked faintly, like a heartbeat refusing to stop. Rayna sat before it, sweating, dizzy, and bleeding through a makeshift tourniquet. She studied its cybersocket arm assembly. A memory rose, brief, sharp. Field training. Emergency cybernetic integration. She had one shot. No anesthesia. No proper tools. No backup. She bit down on a piece of broken alloy and jammed the neural jack into her severed arm. Pain lit up her spine like lightning. Her vision went white, her body convulsed. The mech's power core buzzed awake, syncing, recalibrating, rewriting every nerve path. She screamed, not in agony, but in rage. Not weakness, but return. By dawn, Rayna stood upright. Her new arm, crude, jagged, more weapon than limb, clenched and unclenched with perfect response. The steel hissed as she flexed it. She could crush bone with it. She could tear steel. Good. She planned to. 3 days later, she returned to the upper levels, face hidden beneath a hood stitched from old mining cloth. The camp had moved on. No one noticed the silent figures slipping into the coolant sheds. She wasn't looking for a weapon. She was one now. But she needed her sword. The plasma forge room was sealed. But locks were human tech, and Rayna had designed better ones in her field days. One twist of the mech fingers, and she was inside. The weapon lay buried in scrap, a modified plasma katana, short blade. A failed prototype, once too unstable for field use. She remembered designing it herself, back on Luna base. They'd said it was too unpredictable. Now? That was perfect. Footsteps. She turned. Rick stood in the doorway. Gorlin, 3-armed, his shoulders hunched from years of mine work. He looked at her, then the glowing blade. Then the arm. "I thought they killed you." "They tried," she said. He approached slowly. "Krallix has new security drones." He's spooked. Thinks something's coming. Something is. He exhaled through a cracked respirator. "You can't win this alone. I'm not asking anyone to follow me. You don't have to. They already are." Rayna stared at him. "Why?" "Because you didn't scream," Rick said. "Because you came back." She stepped out into the open that night. Not to strike. Not yet. She let them see her. Just for a second. A flash of her silhouette across the rooftops, sword at her side, mech arm gleaming under moonlight. The whispers began that night. The one-handed ghost. The Terran who returned. Wrath forged in steel. Krolix heard the rumors. Laughed them off. Then doubled the patrols. Then started executing prisoners. One a day. Rayna watched, waited. She wasn't rushing. Revenge wasn't the goal. Liberation was. And it would start with fear, his. The first drone she destroyed never saw her coming. It was an older model, Zorathene surveillance class, no shielding, poor vision in shadow. Rayna dropped from the pipe above, landed silently, and drove her blade through its optic lens. The plasma hissed, the steel shell folded inward. One less eye in the sky. She didn't linger. Every second spent above ground risked exposure. The tunnels were her home now. Her battlefield. Rick met her near the cooling ducts, just past the acid runoff stream. He kept his head low, third hand pressed against his chest, a Gorlan sign of respect. "You're not hiding very well anymore," he said. 3 confirmed kills last cycle. Krolix doubled the checkpoints. Rayna adjusted the strap holding her modified sword. "That's the idea." He squinted at her. "You want him to chase you?" "I want him to bleed resources while I build something he can't stop." Rick nodded slowly, tapping his tusks with a copper rod. "You'll need more than vengeance and nerves." "I've got more. I have a plan." The old armory vault was buried beneath Block Delta. Most thought it had collapsed years ago. Rayna knew better, she'd seen the schematics when she hacked the Overseer's uplink. The entrance had simply been sealed from the inside. Took her 3 days, for detonators, and a half-choked scream when a gas leak lit her coat on fire. But it opened. What lay inside was a treasure trove of forbidden things. Terran plasma cartridges. A damaged exoframe. EMP spikes. Medgel canisters that hadn't expired. But the centerpiece, gleaming, dormant, was the Mark 8 phase katana. Longer than her current blade. Stable. Fast. Built for her kind of war. Rayna ran her new arm along the hilt. Magnetic sync confirmed. The sword buzzed awake, glowing with pale blue light. She smiled, just once. That night, they hit the guard outpost at West Gate. Not to conquer, not yet. To send a message. Rayna and 3 others, Rick, a silent Larkani called Veth, and a half-blind human miner named Dahl, moved like ghosts through the rain-slick corridors. They disabled the turret grid first. Then Rayna went in alone. The sound was fast and wet. Steel against bone. Sparks across stone. She walked out with a severed drone head and no injuries. Veth muttered something in Larkani dialect. Rick translated. "She says, you fight like vengeance incarnate." Rayna didn't respond. She wasn't here to be worshipped. Rumors turned to certainty. Prisoners whispered her name without fear. Some started sabotaging machines, others hoarding scraps, building crude weapons. Krolix responded like a cornered animal. Every sunrise brought new executions. Random. Public. Efficient. But fear works both ways. The more he punished, the more they defied. Not openly. But meaningfully. A spark had been struck. Rayna met her network in the utility tunnels beneath Sector 9. Word had spread beyond humans now. There were Krull soldiers, exiled Tekri priests, even one defector from Krolix's own security force, a technician named Soren who claimed to have seen the footage of Rayna's arm integration and called it divine rebirth. She didn't care what they called it. What mattered was movement. "We hit the supply routes next," Rayna said. "Fuel lines, food drones, med crates. Hit and vanish. No trophies. No noise." Dahl raised a cracked finger. "When do we strike for real?" When he's blind. When he's starving. When his people start questioning if he's even in control. Soren leaned forward. They already are. By the third week, she controlled the underworld of Zyril 9. Tunnels were rigged with escape paths. Drones vanished mid-flight. Guards refused night patrols. Krolix's broadcasts, once smug and booming, grew tighter. Angrier. She is not divine, he snarled in one. She is broken meat with stolen limbs. We will display her corpse on the highest tower. Rayna watched the broadcast beside Rick. He's losing control. He's getting desperate, Rick said. That makes him dangerous. So am I. Rayna returned to the cave where she'd first rebuilt herself. She stood before the mech remains, now scorched from scavenging. She knelt, removed the torn cloth from her stump, and looked at her cybernetic hand, not with shame, but precision. She clenched it once. The metal fingers glowed faintly. They were her now. Her sword rested across her back. Its pulse was steady. She whispered to it, not as a ritual, but as habit. They cut me to scare others. Now I'm the nightmare. Her final act that night was quiet. Deliberate. She crept through a ventilation shaft into the command tower's east wall, bypassed biometric sensors using hacked ID foam, and planted a signal scrambler directly on the tower's relay spine. It would take effect in 40 hours, cutting Krolix off from orbital comms and outside reinforcements. After that, he'd be stranded. Alone. As she crawled back into the dark, a guard walked past below her. He paused. Looked up. She dropped onto him, silent as breath, and slit his throat before his voice could rise. One more shadow erased. Back in the tunnels, Dahl waited with a question he couldn't hold in any longer. Why not just run? Get off-world, vanish. You could have. You still can. Rayna stared at him. I don't want to run, she said. I want him to watch it fall. The tower burned before dawn. Smoke coiled above the skyline in thick columns. Fires raged in the fuel bunkers, their explosions cracking like distant thunder. The mines had gone silent. Supply routes lay in ruins. Communications were severed. Zyril 9 was falling, system by system, spark by spark. And Rayna was already inside the fortress. Soren had disabled the perimeter sensors. Vath scaled the west wall, neutralized the turrets with a plasma lance. Rayna moved through the lower halls like a precision-cut storm. Her sword was no longer silent. It sang now, humming, flaring with each arc. 2 guards rounded the corner. She didn't wait. One sweep, clean, took the legs from one, sliced through the rifle of the other. She caught the survivor by the collar. Where's Krolix? He spat at her feet. He's waiting for you. She dropped him. Good. Krolix stood in the command chamber, surrounded by monitors blinking static. His armor, black Zorathine warplate, glistened with pulse energy. His scythe blade rested against his shoulder, long and cruel. So you made it, he said calmly. Do you feel strong now, little Terran? Rayna stepped into the light. Her coat torn. Cybernetic arm crackling with controlled heat. Sword glowing like the heart of a dying star. No, she said. I feel ready. He attacked first, fast, brutal. His scythe sliced toward her neck. She ducked under, countered with a side sweep. Sparks flew as steel met alien alloy. The sound was sharp and violent. Krolix pressed forward, spinning, swinging high, then low. His movements were efficient, decades of combat distilled into cold precision. But Rayna had fought on dying moons, in vacuum corridors, inside collapsing carriers. She wasn't faster, she was smarter. She led him in. Past the corridor lined with deactivated defense drones. Retinal skin override, she whispered. Her arm flashed. The drones came online. Fired. Not at her. At Krolix. He roared as the blasts tore through his armor. blood, green and steaming, splashed across the floor. He stumbled, recovered, and charged. She met him head-on. Their weapons clashed again and again, louder, heavier. Each strike shook the metal walls. Her blade glowed hotter with each blow. He finally caught her shoulder. The scythe tore through flesh, scraped her mech arm socket. She fell back, breathing hard. Kralik stepped forward, limping now. You could have lived. Disappeared. But you came back for death. She wiped blood from her mouth. No. I came back to end yours. She dropped low, fainted left. When he moved to block, she kicked his knee sideways, hard. Bones cracked. Then she rose, spun, and drove the sword through his side. He gasped. She twisted the blade. Slowly. Do you feel it now? She asked. Feel, what? Fear. Kralix collapsed. Not immediately. He tried to hold himself upright, one hand reaching for a console. She stepped on it, crushed it under her boot. She knelt beside him. You broke people for sport. Sold us. Treated us like trash. And now you want dignity? He bared his teeth. You'll be hunted. I'm counting on it. She stood. Walked to the control terminal. Plugged in her arm's data spike. The system cracked open. She uploaded everything, names of complicit human officials, trade logs, shipment routes, internal footage of executions, the contracts that sold thousands. The galaxy would see it all. The broadcast reached the outer systems within minutes. Colonies paused to watch the feed, Rayna standing over a dying warlord, sword drawn, data flashing behind her. Her voice clear. This is Zyril 9. We are no longer slaves. We are not your tools. And if you come to take us again, we won't run. We'll fight. The revolt didn't end with her. It spread. Across 5 planets, camps went silent. Guards fled. Laborers took up arms. Rayna became more than a person. She became a warning. 3 hours later, she stood in the center square. The same place where they'd taken her hand. Now, it belonged to the people. Rick limped to her side, dirt smeared on his tusks. It's over, he said. No, she replied. It's just begun. He looked at her, confused. There are more camps. More Kralixes. We lit the fire. Now we spread it. Dahl approached, bruised but smiling. What now, Captain? She looked at the sword in her hand. I repay my debt, she said. And then I make sure no one else ever owes one again. As the sun rose, Rayna climbed the tower. She looked over the battered skyline of Zyril 9. Smoke still lingered. But underneath it, voices rose. Laughing. Shouting. Free. She opened her hand, the one they gave her, the one she made hers. Not a fist. An invitation. A beginning.